Spectral Force Genesis, a game possessed by a curse so powerful, most instinctively avoided it upon release, knowing that they were too weak to handle the terror within. To put it briefly, the game entails picking one of 40 nations to campaign for world dominance with. It utilizes a turn-based system, wherein each turn represents a month, and a battle system, where up to 3 chosen heroes on each side lead their armies in the name of patriotism and an occasional wish for genocide. You can recruit nearly any named character into your army. This includes enemy champions and, later on, some other unaffiliated forces. The ultimate task is to conquer the land, and in the process continue the campaign story as it spirals into areas that encapsulate much of the human experience. Love, hate, drive, idiocy. It's all there. And that doesn't sound too bad. But wait, there are only 2 or 3 times you can fight the enemy per year. In between that, you're subjected to little more than waves of meaningless bullshit and tedium. Conditions that don't matter. Interactions that are often just utterly horrid, all mixed with vast swaths of time in which you can do nothing of import but wait on more opportunities for conflict. Because of this, the game's excitement factor often oscillates between that of watching paint dry and the raw abandon of working in corporate America, all for a little more of the story, of the lore. It can be a nightmare sometimes. You have to be a true hero to beat this thing, which is likely why you came here, to prove it to everyone, to prove it to yourself, to say to the world, yes, I am capable of handling the horror, yes, I exist. That sort of sentiment is as admirable as it is common. But is such a thing truly possible? Is it possible to learn this power? Yes, but only from me. Let's go. Originally, you will have only a few nations to choose from. More can be unlocked by subsequent playthroughs, but don't get your hopes up. I still haven't unlocked the Ninja Army, and it's been something like 19 playthroughs on my end. Unicorn Flag is run by a furry, and the leader of Golmani Dukedom doesn't know what a shirt is. But irrespective of these personal failings, every nation is sustainable for a few simple reasons that we'll get into shortly. For now, just pick the group that most appeals to your sensibilities. Now, if you picked a nation that sucks, don't worry. There is an easy step you can take to dramatically increase your battle power. See this nation here? The one that you probably disregarded on account of not being a pedophile? Well, as its name might suggest, there's something of interest to this place beyond child murder. Look at its leadership. This person is hot garbage. This person is also hot garbage. But this one has hand to paradise. And hand to paradise is the equivalent of, actually, there is no easy comparison. You just have to see for yourself. Imagine that you're being pummeled by the vicious remains of the original EPA. They have colored their hair a variety of nonsensical hues to intimidate the enemy, and are using pagan magic to give themselves the edge. It looks like the end is nigh. But wait, you've just unlocked Shanti's level 3 ability, and that means anything is possible. Look. That's right, we just wiped out a third of the enemy, and brought back all our allies, effectively giving logic and reason the middle finger. As long as none of your armies have been completely destroyed, everyone is brought back from the brink of oblivion. It's nothing short of a goddamn miracle. And that means, get Shanti as soon as possible. The second diplomacy month comes up, send out one of your fighters on a perilous journey halfway across the map, and persuade her to abandon her friends for your own mad dream of dominion. Now, imagine she's being a stubborn bitch. Imagine that, for whatever reason, she doesn't want to abandon her friends, brother, and country to join you and your entourage of smelly old men and women. No problem. I have a brilliant strategy that can get you Shanti every playthrough. You need simply throw all of your heroes at the kingdom, await her response, and then if you run out, just reload a save file from before your failure. Rinse and repeat until she breaks down and joins you. There, you're on your way. There are several others worth accruing for gameplay purposes. To save some time, here's a brief and non-exhaustive list. Scary Man from Turban Nation, with access to a small nuclear missile as his level 1 ability. Woman from Ninja Nation, who can draw a small blue line across the screen for massive damage. Assorted healers from the Catholic Church or hippie remnants to the east, etc. But whatever you do, make sure that you don't successfully persuade the leader of any nation to join your cause, because if you do that even once, you get a vassal nation. And while that doesn't sound too bad, having even a single vassal nation locks you out of the campaign's true ending for some reason. You thought that making a country swear servitude was good enough to compare with painting the streets red? No, says this game. You must trample through their cities and commit multiple atrocities on the populace. You must make the women hear the screams of their men. You must eat the enemy children in a horrific fashion, also in front of them. You must... Oh wait, that's just my fanfiction. Anyways, there are certain utilities to not having everyone hate you immediately. For one thing, when starting out, you can use them to increase your reach. Invasions can only take place in nations that directly border either you or an ally, but diplomacy and other persuasions can occur across the map, likely because you're moving with a smaller force. With a few well-placed allies, you can strike anywhere, so it is highly advantageous to spread your seed well over the map early on. In addition, as the name may suggest, allies won't attack, making it far easier to get an initial foothold. And finally, if you have a testosterone deficiency, and don't have the spirit to see the trial through to its end, you can spit on the drive of your nation, and simply try to become allies with everyone, rushing to a subpar ending to unlock another campaign. Regardless, allies have their uses, and when they cease to become helpful, just turn on them. Yeah, that's right, just send your armies to break off your friendship whenever. There are no consequences for betraying them, only the drive to dominion, inevitable and inexorable. Don't question it. In such a world, every possible advantage must be seized. But unlike allies, who you can pump and dump with zero repercussions, you can't get rid of vassal nations except in the event of an enemy nation destroying them, something that you do not want to count on, especially later in the game. Being stuck with one of these things 25 nations in, because you didn't realize it was such a big effing deal earlier, is not fun at all, so be careful. You can also accidentally fuck yourself by clicking Persuade during a siege on the enemy. Avoid that at all costs. And if there is an enemy leader that you do want to join, wait until you've grinded their hopes and dreams into dust before inviting them in from the rubble, doggedly reloading your save file until they stop saying no and relent to join the side of good. Battle. You're going to be doing a lot of it, so it's best to know how the thing works. You have to destroy 40 enemies in order to fully dominate the map, so once you've accumulated several superpowers and get enough soldiers, or just get bored, assign your men to a leader and pick your target. You can attack any nation that borders either you or an ally, so take full advantage. Remember, those saps can be betrayed at any time, assuming that there's at least one hostile nation left. Perhaps you're wondering, what nation should I attack? As with everything in life, it is best to target the weaklings first, so that you may eat their remains and grow big and strong for the next trial. You see these numbers next to defense and soldiers? It's cardboard country over there. Destroy them first. Bear in mind the way army units stack up against each other. Shields beat swords, wands beat shields, and swords beat wands, obviously. Use the stylus to confuse the enemy. They can only attack one army at a time, so sandwich them between two of your own, and fuck them from both ends like Nazi Germany. Try to bait them into attacking the army with the best abilities, as it is violence that causes the meter to rise. And if it gets close to level 3, tap every third of a second to get access to the special ability the moment it becomes available. You do not want to be in the position where your army gets eradicated just before you can use it. The goal, beyond simple victory, is to defeat the enemy with as many of your troops remaining as possible, so that you can throw them against the enemy's defenses. Their walls are possessed with the nationalistic spirit of their remaining forces, and with the raw power of antipathy they can continue to fight back and kill your warriors. The greater the ratio between your surviving forces and the opponents, the more destruction is possible, and the closer you can come to true victory. This is, incidentally, why healers can be so valuable. They can make a difference of hundreds, if not thousands, of points in damage. You'd think that you'd be able to maintain this siege as long as you have troops available, but no. There are only 3 turns given to do your damage, in between which you're given a choice of what to do. Are you going to continue to fight? Or are you going to flee for no reason, or ruin the entire game for yourself? Never click Persuade, and never click Retreat. They are 2 buttons with 0 purpose beyond creating suffering, and should be ignored. Incidentally, when you do ultimately destroy an enemy kingdom and pillage their treasures, generally an uninspired blend of stat-boosting consumables, there are 3 options when dealing with their champions. Dismiss, where you let their crimes of rebellion and existence go utterly unpunished. Execute, which is relatively straightforward. And invite, of which if they refuse, they automatically leave with no further possible input on your end. While not always the case, sometimes adversaries that are dismissed or reject invitation can join enemy nations and stand in your way again later on, learning nothing from their struggle. So I recommend executing everyone that's uninteresting. It's amusing to see them languish anyways. There is a notable exception to this, however, which in fact bleeds into the rest of the game. Always ensure that you don't accidentally ruin the campaign's ending for yourself. Let me explain. I've already warned you of the horror of vassal states, and the way in which passivity can destroy your dreams. However, activity can as well. For each campaign has a story to live out, and many of them require certain conditions to be fulfilled. These conditions are often obscure, and occupy a broad range of difficulty. Some just need you to keep all the champions together and loyal. Others demand certain battle dialogue events to be activated by pitting one specific champion against another. And others still have yet more arcane demands. You'll know if you failed any of them if you cross the conquest threshold of a storyline event, and nothing happens. Then you have permission to feel the raw touch of horror, and hope that one of your earlier save files will allow you to actually fulfill the conditions. Or, failing that, just feel horror regardless, and languish in the existential nightmare of all your efforts being for nothing, nothing, nothing. Perhaps there is a mounting hill of despair building up inside you regardless. How can such things be known? How can I avoid the hell of screwing up this trial of heroics? Don't worry, like before, I have a brilliant strategy to avoid such frustrations. Step 1. Go on the internet. Step 2. Type in spectralforcegenesis.wikidot.com/nation-events. Step 3. Look for your nation, and hope that it isn't one of the ones with a variety of asterisks denoting unknown variables. And there you go. Using this as a resource, you can avoid much of the ruination of activity in your session. But there is one more trial to overcome, one more challenge to deal with as you continue on the path to world conquest, one more crushing sensation that builds in your soul with every step you take. Boredom. Here's the kicker to all of this. Even in the best possible circumstance, ending the battle with your full army as restored by a closing hands to paradise, while the enemy has no troops remaining, you can only do around 3,600 damage at most, or clear 9 larger defense points. Anything above 9 points of defense requires at least 2 battles, and anything above 18 generally requires at least 3. And after a certain point, everyone starts building their defenses into the double digits, with some quickly stacking their way up to 20 defense points. When you can only fight twice or 3 times a year, and when, depending on the rest of the year's composition, they can hastily build back their defenses and push you to needing an additional battle to finally put them in their place. It can get boring, horribly so. You might wonder to yourself halfway through, why am I doing this? Why am I putting my time into this nightmarish game? To reach more of the story. To continue the history of this world, shrouded by mystery across multiple installments. A young elven queen with a genocidal hatred for humans and violent affection for nature returns from her several centuries-long stint as a tree to lead her fellow elves and basically kill all of humanity. A former warrior in the so-called demon army has settled into government after several wars over his long life, and is now desperately trying to fight for a coexistence between his people, now under the far less damning title of magefolk, and humanity. And, well, others. What happened to this world across this centuries-long tale? How will it all end? These are the questions, the lore that drives you deeper into oblivion and suffering, and that is the secret of this game's torture. The pitfalls, the gameplay, the long stretches of oblivion. It was never meant to be completed. But, with this new knowledge and resolve, You can overcome the challenges. You can build onto the rich tapestry of this unexplored history. You can prevail. And throughout it all, remember your true purpose, to prove you are capable, to prove it to everyone, to yourself. And if you can beat this game, if you can dominate the map in your glory and then drag down the heavens themselves, then you can do anything. In that case, hold up the gaming system above your head and scream to the world, "Look, I beat Spectral Force Genesis. Therefore, I am capable of handling anything you throw at me." And then, do whatever it is you wish with reality. I couldn't care less.